Okay, so we get this question a lot when folks come in and talk about leveling kits versus lift kits, and I thought it would just be best if I took a video to kind of explain why we recommend what we recommend. So this truck's a 2021 Silverado 3500 HD, and the premise holds true with the 1500s as well, and really what it comes down to is any independent front suspension vehicle that we want to get a little bit of extra height out. Part of the problem when we go through and we do increase the front height on these vehicles, there's two different ways to do it. There's a lift kit, which includes brackets. There's a leveling kit, which just includes some form of spacer or torsion bar key, or in some cases an aftermarket coil over. So what you're looking at here, you're looking at the front upper control arm, that guy, okay? And as you can see, it's got a hell of an angle on it right now, but that's because this vehicle's on a hoist, and this thing is at full droop. What you'll see when we set this thing back on the ground is that this upper control arm and this CV shaft, and let me go around to the front, this tie rod assembly is sitting parallel to the deck, right? And when these vehicles come from the factory, that's how they sit. They sit parallel. And the reason they do that is because, right angles are the strongest angle, right? Upper control arms, there's some aftermarket solutions for the problem that we run into with these ball joints. Because, in a leveled truck, say you've got 2 inches or 2.5 inches of extra height on this HD, you're going to see that this angle is close to this angle, right? So this truck is drooped out right now, but at ride height, when it's sitting on the ground, with a leveled truck, this angle is not much different, and that's really hard on ball joints. So Cognito and other folks, they make a aftermarket upper control arm that integrates a little bit of angle here to try and remedy the extreme angle that's sitting on that upper ball joint. It's a band-aid, and if you really just want to level your truck, then that's the way you got to do it. You got to get some upper control arm in there to fix that problem. But the main premise here as to why we recommend a 4-inch lift kit or a 6-inch lift kit versus a leveling kit is to keep the angles on the lower control arm, the CV shaft, the tie rod, the upper control arm and corresponding ball joint, to keep all that stuff sitting parallel, as close to factory as possible. And the only way we can do that is by going through and dropping the differential down. And the way we do that is by using a bracket kit. Most suspension manufacturers are going to have some kind of a bracket kit that drops the differential down, drops the lower control arm mount down. The knuckles that they use in these systems, they actually raise the height of the tie rod itself to try and keep things parallel when it's sitting at ride height. That's the best and most durable way to do this. What keeps us going back to Cognito Motorsports on these GMs is the fact that, it's what they do with the front differential. Most companies will drop this front differential, but Cognito, up till 2019, they drop it and orient it in such a manner that if you know anything about drive shaft phasing, with a CV drive shaft, your pinion angle has to be at a certain angle to match the angle on the front drive shaft. Most of your systems do not include a CV drive shaft. So 4-wheel drive operation at highway speeds, like anywhere on the North Coast, that becomes problematic because you tend to have driveline vibrations. And Cognito is the only company that we've seen that we just have had tremendous luck not having any drive shaft vibrations in 4-high at highway speeds. And that's a big deal. So another thing I really like about these Cognito kits, and they're not the only people that do it, but I like how they do it, is this is what's called a raised torsion bar setup. So for years and years, let me back this out a little bit, You know, you'd have a drop bracket right here to bring that torsion bar down to match the drop of those front brackets. But what they've done, and other companies, is they've gone in and they've made this raised torsion bar bracket right here. Bolts up to the lower control arm, and it keeps that torsion bar in the factory location, which is pretty cool. Better for ground clearance. And of course they integrate another bump stop right here too, that is a little bit more rigid than the factory rubber unit. So just one more thing I like about these kits. Really nice skid plates. The powder coat from Cognito is phenomenal, and you're going to find that with your cheaper suspension system, you're going to find that you've got rusty bracketry after the first winter. It isn't going to take long, and that becomes an issue. So hopefully you glean a little information as to why, in our opinion, a 4-inch lift kit is better for several reasons than a leveling kit. And it comes down to ride quality, it comes down to durability of your components, and we're letting this suspension act in such a manner that it did from the factory, and that's a big deal. Multiple reasons why we use Cognito Motorsports. You find them on our website because we really like these things. They take a lot more time to install, but in the end, you're gonna have a better system. These things are good to go. Give you a little rundown here on this brand new 2021, 300 miles on it. As we get to the back here, we'll start talking about some of the options that we're going to see available for these things in the near future, hopefully. So these things ride pretty good, but if you tend to spend a lot of time on dirt roads, this spring pack, and specifically this overload spring, becomes problematic. What we like to do is we like to have what's called a mini pack. It's a Deaver Springs built pack that takes the place of this overload spring, and it puts in, you know, a 3 or a 4 leaf pack that's very progressive. So you retain some of the overload capabilities, not all, but that initial ½ inch of travel to an inch of travel that we see on a washboarded road tends to be a lot nicer to your kidneys, because you've got a much more progressive overload spring with that mini pack. Hopefully in the near future we'll have access to those, and we'll be able to show you guys some pictures and videos of why those are important. This is the rear shock setup that we chose for this, the Fox 2.0 remote reservoir. With these kits comes with a little bit taller block to make sure we've got a level ride. We do have options for those. If you tend to have a lot of weight in your bed pretty often, you tow trailers a lot, then what we tend to do is we tend to put a little bit taller block in, an inch, inch and a half taller block. You're still gonna have a little bit of rear rake, but when you're loaded, the thing's gonna sit level. You're not gonna be sitting ass low. 35, 12, 50, 20, Toyo Open Country CT, studded on a set of 20x9 hostile wheels with a 0mm offset. Quite a bit of tire poke. These GMs have always had issues with tire clearance, and this one's no different, right? With this 0mm offset, we find that we've got a little bit of issue here rubbing, and on the inside of the wheel well rubbing. In this kind of instance, a nice clean trim job is going to fix what ails this truck. So we'll get that done, and I'll take some pictures of that and try and attach them to this video. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, make sure and give us a call. It's 406-551-2777. Love to help out on your next project. Have a great day. Okay, so as promised, I wanted to get a video of what I mean when I say a parallel to the ground upper control arm. That's what that looks like. We've got really good angle on this ball joint, straight up and down, right? That's as strong as that ball joint's ever gonna be. And in this case, there's really no need to do, you know, an aftermarket tubular style control arm unless you're terribly worried about the strength of the thing. In that case, if you're out, you know, running deserts, hitting whoops faster than you should be, then guess what? You might want an up control arm. And here is what I want you to pay attention to is the angle on the CV drive shaft, the lower control arm, and the tie rod itself. Everything is showing a right angle, and that's as strong as it's ever going to be. And again, the idea here is that when this thing contacts a bump, the only thing that tire has to do is move straight up. It doesn't have to move out first, and that puts a lot of small bump compliance back into the ride quality on this thing. Super cool. This is the way that you should do it if your pocketbook allows.